Good evening and welcome to this Facebook Live presentation. I think we're actually not on Facebook. I don't know what platform. We're on StreamYard, maybe on StreamYard to Facebook. Technical things are not always my forte, but they are helpful for us to have this virtual town hall. Most of you will know me. I'm Rob Oliphant, Member of Parliament for Don Valley West. And it's really good to be here with you tonight. We haven't done these for a little while, so it's kind of reaching out. I'm in Ottawa tonight. We had a vote tonight on our the first vote related to our budget, which passed. And so both my colleague and friend Yasir and I are feeling pretty good that the budget is out and we are making some headway. So tonight we want to talk a little bit about the economic challenges that Canada is facing. No surprise that people know that what is going on has to do with the Trump administration and tariffs that have been wielded across the world. And Canada has had our fair share of that disruption caused by both the tariffs and the threat of tariffs, which have really challenged industries, businesses, workers, Canadian citizens and our residents to look at how it is we organize our world, how it is we make sure that Canadians have the ability to have a good livelihood and a good life. And so I wanted to, a number of you have asked questions about this. I've had many letters asking what our government is doing to stabilize our economy. And we're a trading nation. So I wanted to start with talking about the trade challenges that we have. Canadian businesses are robust, they're competitive, they're fueled by intelligence and wisdom, but they're facing challenges right now. So I asked my friend and colleague Yasir Naqvi, who is the Member of Parliament for Ottawa Centre, who wears many hats. He wears the hat of Member of Parliament for Ottawa Centre. He wears the hat as the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade. Another hat, Parliamentary Secretary to the Secretary of State for International Development. But he also has worn hats in the future as a provincial member of the legislature, an MPP, as well as the former Attorney General of Ontario. Plus, he knows Don Valley West and has lots of friends in Don Valley West. So that is particularly important to me. And I rent a condo in his riding. So he's sort of my part-time MP as well. But tonight, we really wanted to bring some focus on really the challenges that we have with our most important trading partner, which is the United States, the most convenient, and we have an economy that is absolutely entwined. We have an integrated set of supply chains and an economy that is really quite mutually dependent, and it is fragile right now. And what we're doing to look elsewhere. So that's what we wanted to do to be here. We'll do some presentation, a little bit of the run of show. Yasir will give a few, and I'm going to call him Yasir, not MP Naqvi. In Don Valley West, he's just Yasir. And I'm just Rob in Ottawa Centre, maybe. He give a context of where we're at in the our most important and most lucrative trading relationship, which is the United States of America, and then how we're diversifying beyond the United States, a process that began many years ago, but maybe has intensified of late. And so I'm going to turn it over to Yasir, who will give his opening thoughts.
Well, thank you very much, Rob. First of all, I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to engage in this conversation with you. You've been a friend for a long, long time. We worked together when I was a provincial member, and you represented Don Valley West federally. And I've looked up to you, and I've learned a lot from you. So this is a real treat for me. Let me just share also another hat that I used to wear. That before getting into public life, into politics, I was an international trade lawyer. And my graduate work was in international trade policy. So it's a bit of it's a moment that we're living through, and I feel quite lucky and fortunate to be part of the conversation that is going on. Look, you said something that is so true, which is Canada is a trading nation. If you look back through the history of Canada, before Canada became Canada, you look at Indigenous people, they were trading people. They traded between tribes all the time. And that has very much to this day been the value, one of the values of our country. And much of our prosperity that we enjoy today is because of that nature of who we are, because we have always traded. We've had few great advantages in that regards. One being our natural resources, which has been always been a big source of economic prosperity for us. Of course, our people, the talent, the innovation that comes, and so over times we have really have moved, not only have relied on our natural resources, but what I call the value add, the manufacturing, the innovation, the creativity of the information technology has been a big. So not only we trade goods, but we also trade services. That has been a huge advantage for us. And lastly, what I will say is our geography. We're part of North America. We're next to United States of America, the one of the largest, if not the largest economy in the world. And we've had this natural alignment with the Americans to be able to sell our goods and services by having strong people-to-people ties, very similar political cultures in terms of robust democracies, and then creating those integrated supply chains. All that has been turned upside down. And that's where the real challenge lies. It's no fault of ours, I would say to you. It is through the actions of Donald Trump, who is on this mission to impose protectionist policies that is not only hurting Canadians, but also hurting Americans. The unjustifiable tariffs that he has put on Canadian goods has an impact of both ways, which creates this really important imperative for us that we build on our status as a trading nation and look at other parts of the world. There's more to this globe than North America, than just the United States and Mexico. There are many different parts of the world where we should be trading with and building our markets. So trade diversification, which we as Canadians have spoken about in the past,
Yeah.
but the imperative that I'm speaking of becomes really real now. I'll just make a last point before ending here. Why I think is also advantageous to us, not only to explore other markets, but Canada has also grown. We are a much more diverse and multicultural country ever before. We have people from all parts of the world that call Canada home. So that people-to-people connection that I was speaking to earlier, those diasporas, gives us a natural springboard to build even better ties, both on a social level, but also at the economic level. So whether you're looking at countries like Philippines or countries in Southeast Asia or India or Pakistan or Latin American countries like Argentina and Brazil, and then many other European countries like Poland, for example, where we have diasporas from those countries that are proud Canadians, we have a natural linkage there that we can build on to open new markets. They want to do business with Canada, and Canada has a lot to offer to them.
Oh, I love this. I love the way you're expressing it. I often, and I'm just recapping that, I say Canada has huge resources below the ground in terms of our natural resources, our mineral wealth, our oil and gas, LNG. We have huge resources below the ground and huge resources above the ground, the people.
Yes.
So we are blessed with doubly blessed with those natural resources, and then the human resources that are, and including diasporic communities who are bridges, cultural and business interpreters. They speak literally the languages, but they also speak the language of a country to help us understand how to do business and how to profit well for all Canadians. And I think Canada has a reputation of being part of the international rules-based order. When we have a deal, we stick to the deal. We can be counted on. We're dependable. We pay our bills, and we make sure our companies pay their bills. So this is the other advantage I think we have, that we're high and held in high regard in the world. And in a world where those international norms and rules are kind of rocky, Canada can be trusted. And so starting in there, I'm old enough. I'm glad you can call me like a father to you, but I am old enough to have gone through the first free trade agreement with the United States, a big deal in the election cycle with John Turner and Brian Mulroney. So it takes us back to the 80s. And then bringing in NAFTA, the agreement which brought the continental, our continental agreement with Mexico and the U.S., and then the renegotiation with under the first Donald Trump regime to bring KUSMA, or with the new NAFTA. This has been an evolving trade relationship, which has lowered tariffs to zero in most places, and has allowed Canadians to keep our supply management system, keep a variety of things. And our Prime Minister is quite often talking about the fact that right now, of all the countries in the world, we still have the best trade deal with the United States. So much of our trade is still covered, at least for now, under KUSMA. How does that look? How does that trade deal work to our advantage? And is it something we should be preserving?
Yeah, so I think, look, you just presented a very appropriate historical recap as to how we have arrived. The trade, consecutive trade agreements have been hugely beneficial to all three countries, not just to Canada, United States, or Mexico. All three mutually beneficial, because we've been able to really create a continental North American market with integrated supply chains, really leveraging the expertise that exists in all those three countries, moving parts and goods all over the place and creating products at a better quality and a lower price that is competitive around the world. That's why I can tell you, and if I go back to my experience as a trade lawyer, I used to get hired, retained by many companies from different parts of the world, even countries, so that they can learn from how we work so well with the Americans. It's that agreement has been the envy of the world, because everybody would have loved to have that kind of an arrangement with the United States. And so it's troubling to see that is being all upended. But the point you're making is that agreement is still intact, which is a good thing. So when Prime Minister talks about that about 85% of exports to the United States are tariff-free, that is true, because the tariffs that Donald Trump and his administration have been imposing do not apply to those goods that are KUSMA compliant, that meets the rules of KUSMA. And so we're grateful that the Americans are respecting the agreement. The rules that are being outlined in that agreement are more or less being respected. Where the real challenge lies is some of the sectoral tariffs they have put in on auto, steel, aluminum, lumber, which have been very challenging. But if you average it all out, our tariffs on Canadian goods is around 5.5% right now, where the rest of the world is about 17%. So we still have a really good deal in place because of KUSMA. Of course, our work ahead, the work that the Prime Minister and his team of ministers are doing, is to engage on those sectoral tariffs, autos, steel, aluminum, lumber, to see if we can get that reduced, that we can get a better deal on them as well, because again, it has a huge impact on industry and jobs here in Canada, but it also raises the cost for American businesses on the other side that use these products as well. But KUSMA still is hugely beneficial. We are going to be going into a mandatory KUSMA review next year. That's written in the agreement every 5 years. It's not a renegotiation, it's a review to see how to improve the agreement. So we're quite focused on that as well. We're doing a lot of consultation. I sit on the Standing Committee on International Trade. We're doing consultations right now of industry to understand what they want us to bring up during the review. But part of our conversations with the Americans is to make sure that we improve KUSMA. We don't get rid of KUSMA. We want to preserve that agreement. So does Mexicans. And then work on some of the other irritants that has come up due to the protectionist policies from Donald Trump. So
if I'm getting this right, we have a large amount of our trade is covered under KUSMA, and that it's a little bit fragile because we know a renegotiation is going to come up. or a review is going to come up, I should say. Sorry, I heard you.
Yeah.
The review is going to come up, and that could be an opportunity for improving, but it also could threaten some of the things we hold dear. At the same time, we have some things outside of KUSMA, well, because it has been declared by the United States as part of their security issues around steel, aluminum, softwood lumber has always been a challenge. I think the thing that people talk the most about is around autos, because even though we don't have an auto manufacturing plant in Toronto, in Don Valley West, many jobs in Ontario, Southern Ontario, really relate to the auto industry. And it's a large employer. We have steel in Hamilton, we have steel in Sault Ste. Marie, we have softwood lumber, not like in British Columbia, but still significant in Northern Ontario. So these must be priorities of the government, I'm assuming, to shore up our trading and negotiation on those. Are there other priorities too that you think the government is holding?
So, I mean, obviously, we want to preserve KUSMA. As I said, it's 85% of our exports is KUSMA compliant, and is tariff free. So that's a huge advantage that Canadian businesses have over other businesses from different parts of the world. Europeans don't enjoy that. Asian countries do not enjoy that. China does not enjoy that, or India for that matter. So that's the thing. The sectors that are where new tariffs have been imposed, auto, steel, aluminum, lumber, they are also covered into KUSMA. But this is where President Trump has used economic security and national security as an imperative to impose those tariffs. By the way, they are under dispute in the United States too. And just yesterday, Supreme Court of the United States was hearing the case on whether they're legal or not. So we'll wait for that decision. But in the meantime, Prime Minister Carney's government is not just sitting back. They are actively engaged with President Trump and his team to find a better deal on all those sectors. We've got some other leverages as well. Energy is a big one, for example, because Americans buy most of their energy, over 60% of their energy. We're talking about oil, natural gas, electricity from Canada. So we've got some levers as well. And so we're engaged in a thoughtful conversation. They are at a bit of a shaky moment at the moment, given due to an ad that Premier Ford ran that President did not like and suspended the talks. But as the Prime Minister has said, we are ready to get back to the table as quickly as possible so that we can find a deal that is in the best interest of Canada, which is in the best interest of the United States, and most importantly, best interest of the economies and the workers who are involved in those sectors.
Yeah, the Americans are also in the midst of the longest government shutdown in their history. I think we're day 36 now. So that has to be affecting the government operations in many ways. So we're ready. I think we're good faith negotiators, and we will keep doing that the best we can. So while we're doing that, obviously, when we've had threats, and it's not only Republicans, as we've had threats on our economy other times about trade. There are protectionist moves in the United States. We've been looking elsewhere. Since I've been an MP, we obviously have the Canada European Agreement, CETA, the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement with Europe, which is ratified, I think, in all but 9 or 10 countries right now, but still operating without ratification quite well to grow trade. We have an Indo-Pacific strategy, which has a trade component, part of that being the Comprehensive Progressive Trade Agreement, the CPTPP, with certain countries, some bilateral free trade agreements, a new one we just established with Ecuador to open up a door on that, which I think is quite important. I know in our offices, by the way, if you don't move, the lights suddenly start to go down. It's quite disconcerting. Yasir and I are both in our offices. Every now and then I think I should go like this just to make sure the lights don't go off. So tell me about trade diversification. Tell me where are we looking? Where do we have our eyes? And what can government do? And what can business do? I mean, because government can't do everything. Business has, I've often said government can set the table, but then businesses have to go and eat. So what are we doing? How are we doing that?
I used to have a trade law professor who always used to say, countries don't do business with countries, companies do business with companies. So our job as a country is to create favorable environment for our businesses to be able to do business with other businesses from other countries. Look, as you and I were saying earlier, we've been talking about trade diversification back many decades. I remember Pierre Elliott Trudeau, when he was the Prime Minister of Canada, talked about trade diversification. This time it's different because I really do believe that structurally our relationship with the United States has changed, and this is an important wake-up call, if I can call it that, where we need to really do work harder to open and build those new markets. Now, we have done quite well over the last 10 or so years, where we have seen our non-US exports, in other words, exports to other countries other than United States, have grown. But we can do even better. So as part of our trade diversification strategy, on behest of Prime Minister Carney, we have set up a target to double our non-US exports in a decade. So in next 10 years, we want to make sure that we increase it by $300 billion to other parts of the country, which means that we have a lot of hard work ahead of us to open up those markets. We start with, you mentioned CETA, the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement with European Union. Europe, of course, is our closest natural ally for us to start working. They're also looking at other than United States. So, of course, we're deepening those relationships, not just with United Kingdom and France, which are, of course, natural allies given our history, but also many other countries like Poland, which is one of the fastest growing economy in Europe, Spain, Italy, our other G7 partners, in finding ways to be able to do both business. But Indo-Pacific is another big region. For us, it's, as you mentioned, we have an Indo-Pacific strategy. Trade is a big component. Indonesia is the recent agreement we signed. But the one we're, for example, working quite hard on is with the ASEAN countries. These are 10 Southeast Asian nations. Collectively, they are the 5th largest economy in the world. They have over 600 million people who live in the area, growing middle class. So we're negotiating a free trade agreement with them, which we hope to finalize early next year in 2026. That will open a huge market. We're engaged with China and India. Of course, those are sophisticated conversations because we have to not only align our economic interests, but some of our geopolitical challenges there as well. And I know you are far more expert in that than I am. But we want to engage with those countries. Give you an example in Latin America, because we cannot forget our southern part of our hemisphere. Mercosur, which has countries like Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay as members, 5th largest economy collectively. We have relaunched our negotiation with them. So our focus right now is to look at these emerging markets, these growing markets, to engage in thoughtful agreements that opens new markets for our farmers, for our manufacturers, for our service providers in financial services and information technology, and create opportunities to not only improve the quality of life in those countries, but be able to export. One area that I think we need to do more work, and I know you are quite personally passionate about too, is Africa. Africa is another part of the world that is growing, one of the fastest growing sort of 20 to 30-year-old population in the world. There's an opportunity there where I don't think Canada has done a really effective job thus far, but something that I think we should also be focusing on as part of our trade diversification strategy.
Oh, absolutely. When I want to feel really old, I go to Africa. because the creativity you mentioned, but it is, very honestly, a tough market for us to get into because there is poverty, there are problems in Africa. However, we have to start now. I always said so. Europe is the easiest. We've had a transatlantic relationship. We have many Canadians who have come from Europe. We had two founding peoples, Indigenous people, and two founding peoples. We have Italians, we have Portuguese, we have Spanish people. We have, so it's easy for us to go to. We have a transatlantic defense relationship, obviously, with NATO. We have Commonwealth and La Francophonie establishment there. Then Indo-Pacific, obviously. When I lived in Vancouver, I had come from Ontario. I realized in Ontario we get quite US-centric or European-centric. You live in Vancouver, you're on the Pacific. And so we've not taken advantage of the fact that we are a Pacific nation. So we were able to upgrade our relationship to a strategic partnership with ASEAN. And hopefully now we keep building on that because it's a good two-way market. We can buy stuff we need and we can sell stuff they need. I jokingly talk about Africa and say, Egypt has got cotton, but they don't have maple syrup. We have maple syrup. They don't have cotton. It's a trivial example, but that's what trade is about. Trade is looking at what you have, what you do best. You trade it with another person. You buy those things, and the whole world's better. This is something we're not quite getting through to the American leadership right now because it's good for the U.S. too. On that, a lot of jobs in Canada are small and medium enterprises. We have big companies, especially like in Africa, we have big mining companies and we've got some big energy companies working. But a lot of our Canadian businesses have 200-300 employees. They're not big. Is our government interested in helping them get in? Of course we are, but how is our government going to help small and medium-sized businesses that may be in Don Valley West engage in international trade? Because it's hard. They don't have infrastructure in their own companies often to do trade.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think let me just start with you also asked me about the role of business in trade diversification. So of course, governments have to do their part in opening up new markets by having agreements that allows for more preferential access to those markets. If there are unnecessary regulatory burdens, that we lower them so business can easily enter those markets. If there were tariffs, to lower those tariffs. All those things are extremely important. Dispute settlement mechanisms, so there's rules around how we do those trades. But our businesses also are the ones that in the end of the day, large or mid-size or small, have to take that initiative to explore those markets. So part of the work that we're also doing as part of this trade diversification strategies is to take our businesses to those countries to help develop those relationships. So you take the government to government relationship and then try to convert that to a business to business commercial relationship. So whether those are trade missions or taking part in various trade exhibitions, that could be from defense to energy to information technology. AI is becoming a really big topic right now. Those are things. And one of the things that I'm finding that our Canadian businesses do want to do business other place, but their preference still is the United States because they're just so comfortable with that market. It's so easy. We same culture, same language, same time zone most of the time. Easy going back and forth.
Trucks going across, yeah.
Exactly. And so as we are traveling in other parts of the world and taking businesses, yes, I recently went to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. It took us 26 hours to get there, one way. And it's a 12-hour time difference, but you got to get to work, and they're growing economy and they're hardworking and they're so hungry right now to improve their quality of life. We have an opportunity. And then we have to go back 26 hours later. But then a few months later, you have to go back again to build that relationship, to then get that deal. And so businesses, our Canadian businesses, have to get out of the comfort zone that we've gotten used to do that hard work. And the same goes for small businesses, which is even more challenging because they may not have all the resources necessary. One of the greatest tool that we have in Government of Canada is something called the Trade Commissioner Service. Is over 100 years old. And what it is that we have in our embassies and missions in other countries, we have these commission officers who are diplomats, and their job is to build relationships in those countries. So if you're a commission officer in Poland, your job is to know the Polish market. Your job is to understand what their needs are. And so when Canadian businesses are interested in selling something, the trade commissioners are the ones who work with them, leverage the relationships they have built, the intelligence they have gathered, the commercial information and know-how, and then help do the matching necessary on behalf of that Canadian company to get the deal done. That service, I think, is really useful. It's really helpful to mid and small size businesses. I think the challenge is that we need to do a better job of getting it known. But every business that have used the trade commission service just raves about how helpful it is in a new market where you as a business may not know much, but then we've got staff there, Canadian staff, public servants who are paid by taxpayers of Canada, and they are instrumental in making those deals happen.
So, and there's also the Export Development Corporation, right? The government agency. And that, I don't really know how they work, but they do help companies with capitalization. They do help companies with preparing for trade. And I don't know much about it, but I do know that it exists. So do you know much about
Yeah,
EDC?
the easiest explanation I can give you is they're like a bank. They're like a bank that's run by Government of Canada. Their focus is exports. And so they're there to give credit facility. They're there to underwrite risk. And so in many respects, a company, a large business or small, medium-sized business may not want to take the risk. And they're there to take that risk from
Got
you,
it.
so that you actually sell. And so they have the capacity to do all kinds of detailed analysis, which a business may not be able to do. So we are there as a Government of Canada Crown Corporation to help our businesses. They're very successful in helping businesses, whether it's large investments or selling things, in getting those deals done. There's another entity called the Canadian Commercial Corporation, CCC, which does government to government. So they may play a role with Government of Canada to, let's say, Government of France, where Government of France for their military looking for some equipment, and a private company is the one that's going to provide, but it's orchestrated by Government of Canada because it's another
Right.
foreign government wants to buy things. We've got lots of these instruments available that are there to help companies, and we just need to make sure that there are more companies who want to take advantage of these incredible opportunities that these crown corporations could create.
Sure. I mean, I don't think maybe one of the things we don't do very good as a government is helping people know where they can go. I know that in my office, I've had people come about BDC, the Business Development, which is a bank really, to help, but the Export Development Corporation would focus on pushing trade. So probably need to do a bit more on that. We got a couple of questions in here, and maybe just take a little break from our dialogue, and say one thing is, who do we see as Canada's strongest trading partner or potential outside of the United States? That may be a region or maybe a country. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think we'll start with Europe, as you were saying. I think there is there's a lot of alignment there, in terms of reliability as a partner, the values alignment in terms of democratic institutions, respect around human rights, rule of law is of course extremely important. If you've got a large company making hundreds of millions of dollars of investment, they want to make sure that their investment is protected and they can actually use that investment to grow profitability. And so Europe is definitely a big partner. There right now, I think the tremendous opportunity for us is around the defense sector, because Europe is going through a huge rearmament process in light of Russia's aggression in Ukraine and the threat on the eastern flank that Russia is posing. And so Canada can play a very important role in that process, along with what we're doing is which is increasing our investment in defense. But there's incredible defense companies in defense related companies in Canada that could partner with European countries. The second big area I will say is Indo-Pacific. And I think I look at Indo-Pacific in three buckets. The one is China, sort of on its own, and the importance of China. The Prime Minister met the Premier of China just last week in Korea, and I think there is an invitation for our Prime Ministers to visit China. India is growing, ever growing economy right now. So of course opportunities with them, and we're starting to engage in free trade negotiations with them also. And then I look at the ASEAN countries, the South Asians, the Indonesia, Malaysia, those countries. Vietnam, precisely. So I think that's I would say that is the second beside Europe area of focus for us. So that's where I think you will see Canada investing a lot of its energies in our trade diversification strategy.
Oh, excellent. And it seems to me again what we're learning an important lesson. We don't put all our eggs in one basket.
Yes.
We'll do it. I think it's also needs to be business led and sectoral led. To be, we know we're good at agri-food, and we know we're good at fertilizer. We know we're good at energy. We know we're good at renewable energy. We know we're good at airplane. The aeronautical industry is important in Canada. One of the questions that has just come in is, and I'm really proud of this question coming from Don Valley West, saying, how is the government making sure that communities outside of urban areas, rural areas, small towns, small cities, will they benefit from these initiatives that the government is taking? So it's not just about Toronto; it's about our whole country.
It is absolutely. So I think if you look at the sector that are a strong suit for us is agri-food. You're absolutely right. Like our lentils and peas and corn and wheat and our beef, hogs, all those are huge exports for us around the world. Everywhere that I have traveled on behalf of Canada, you hear about those countries wanting more Canadian produce. We are one of the food baskets of the world, but the quality is so high because of our safety regulations that people really trust buying those products. That's a huge boon for our agricultural communities across the country, which are all outside major urban centers. So I think that alone is a big focus. But then also, if you look at our mid-sized communities, where you've got Peterborough, I'll use as an example, which has incredible ecosystem for nuclear energy. They have built an amazing supply chain in that community. So when you are helping other countries to be energy independent by way of nuclear energy, that's a huge direct boon to mid-sized communities like Peterborough, for example, right here in Ontario, because there are good, high-paying jobs that are involved that it benefits people who live in those communities.
I just had a flashback to Ontario Summer Caucus in Windsor, and we went to visit a greenhouse operation. It was the second largest greenhouse in Canada or North America. A lot of the food was being shipped outside of Canada. So we're able to feed people in a variety of ways. There's another one.
Example, just to point this, and I know you've got a fairly large South Asian and Pakistani diaspora community in Don Valley West. Canada just signed a significant agreement with the government of Pakistan to sell canola to Pakistan and peas. That's a great benefit for communities in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, that are heartland for canola, to be able to now ship that in a country like Pakistan, which is the fifth largest population in the world.
I know it's a little outside your responsibility, but people are asking about helping workers transition and what we are doing in supporting people as industries may change or people may be retooling. What is our government doing to help ensure that businesses remain competitive, get trade, but also that workers are taken care of?
Well, that's very much what our budget is all about. That was just tabled 2 days ago. I would say there's two big elements in there. One is the supports that we are providing for workers in auto, tariff, aluminum, lumber sectors, because those companies who are involved in those sectors that are being hurt, we want to make sure that those companies remain solvent, that those workers are supported if they've been furloughed for a momentarily time, but also help them explore other markets as well. So that's a big part. The second big part of our budget is the investments that we are making in making our businesses more productive and competitive, so that they can produce superior products, superior services, and be able to sell other parts of the world. We want to make Canada one of the most attractive jurisdiction for foreign direct investment, for capital to come here, because the returns are better on that capital. So that will allow for our businesses to be more competitive, which makes us more viable in other parts of the world.
But I can't think of a better place to invest in than Canada, especially Ontario. We have what other countries crave, and that is a country of the rule of law, predictability, stability, a good climate. A little cold in the winter sometimes, but it's a good climate. There's a question here around frozen pensions UK. I'm going to leave it, but the asker will know that I can go offline and talk about the frozen pension issue, because it is sort of a little bit of a niche issue. Maybe because we're down to the last few minutes, it's a question I think for both of us. Do we think that the relationship with the U.S. and Americans has forever changed? Or will things go back to normal after this particular presidency? Or what do we think of Canada's future with the United States?
So my view is that it has changed. I think it structurally has changed. Look, America will always be our neighbor. We always will have family and friends who are Americans. I often ask in any gathering I'm in and speaking on this topic to ask people to do a show your hands if you have an American relative or a friend. Every single hand goes up. That will not change. The people-to-people relationship which we have with the United States will not change. I hope it never changes. It always going to keep us close. But I think politically, trust is a key ingredient in any political or commercial relationship that has been impacted. Even if Mr. Trump is no longer the president whenever his term ends in a few years, I don't foresee the new administration just hitting a reset button and going back to exactly where we were before Trump 2.0. I think there's a new level set that has been now established that's going to be the starting principle. So it is incumbent on us, of course, to work hard to get the best deal for Canada, as the Prime Minister is doing. But at the same time, just don't feel that we just go back to the old normal, because that old normal probably does not exist, and we need to really focus on other parts of the world. And as we have set the target of doubling non-US exports in the next decade.
And I think we as Canadians have to take this as good news. These are opportunities. These are ways of ensuring that we have our trade around the world, and that when any economy goes up and down, not everything happens at the same time. So we've got Asia Pacific, we've got the ASEAN, we've got Latin America, we've got Africa, Europe, and Canada, despite our rather somewhat isolated geography, because we're surrounded by 3 oceans, that does affect us. I think we will be the best at this in the world, and I am quite hopeful. Yes, it's changed, absolutely. However, United States will be there. I went to school in Chicago. I care about this. I have family in the States. We care about this. but we're also going to stand up for ourselves. And there's something kind of empowering about it all for us. I look forward to the next decade or two to see what we do. And with that, we've come to the end.
And I totally agree with your optimism. I share all of this. And I think what has been good in this whole in this whole episode is for us to realize that so much of the building of our country, the access has been north-south, has been really focused on building stuff and selling it to the Americans. And for the first time in a long time, we're starting to think east-west. That this country, actually, the axis of this country is on east-west. And
Sure.
and for us to then not only break those internal trade barriers as we've been working so hard at, so that we as a country can prosper, but then also leverage our east coast and our west coast. We're so lucky to have three coasts. We are part of the Atlantic side of the world and the Pacific side of the world. And so I think that reminder and that work, the hard work, the structural work we're doing, you and I as part of the Carney government in this parliament, is that important work of reorienting Canada from a north-south axis to an east-west axis, which I think is going to really pay huge dividends down the road if we get this right.
Absolutely. I think the future is great for Canada. I had a lunch this week with the ambassador from Iceland who's leaving. I hosted a lunch for him. And his emphasis has been on north to north trade. And he said that we have not gone anywhere near the to really exploit the potential of our Arctic and Nordic country relationships. Canada is a northern country. So whether it's Denmark and Greenland, the Kingdom of Denmark and Greenland, whether it's Sweden, Finland, and we go right over to the Baltics, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, and Poland. So we've got a worldview that I think is envious. We've got the people that have the resources. We have the natural resources, and we got a pretty darn good Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade. What else do you need? All right. With that, thanks everybody, and thanks to our teams who help us look good, do the best they can with what we've got, and wish you all a very good night. If people have questions, they can get me at rob.oliphant@parl.gc.ca and call my office, and we'll answer the question. I'll give the hard ones again to Yasir.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.